It's actually snow on the ground outside. That rarely happens here. It does snow every now and then, not too often, but it usually melts the moment it hits the ground. So I had this lovely morning walk and I could hear the snow crunch under my feet. And I know that some of you are from regions that have a lot of snow, so you're not impressed, but I mean, it was so peaceful and so lovely, and I'm in the perfect mood to make a video. And this one is going to be about something that is rather stressful if it's something that you do, which you definitely don't have to. I kind of wish I wasn't going to, but it's holiday gift knitting. I'm actually only knitting for my kids, and if you've been around for a while, you know they're incredibly knit-worthy, so I don't feel bad about it. Today I am wearing my Iyun sweater, which I love so much. I rarely make these everyday staple basics when I knit because I'm drawn to all the pretty color work and textures and stuff. But once you finish a piece like this that just goes with everything, it's a whole nother feeling. And I'm wearing it all the time. I will be talking more about that in my monthly roundup, which will be coming rather soon because time just flies nowadays. We were not here to talk about that. What I wanted to talk about is this episode that is a pattern roundup, which I have been doing a lot lately. So I am going to go in a different direction for the next few episodes because you must be sick of this by now. But this is a pattern roundup, and I have, as per usual, divided all the things into categories, and today I have 4. And I did this last year. I divided it into the amount of time you need to finish the piece. And I'm not talking about actual knitting time, because I know that most of you have other things to do besides knitting, I'm sure. So when I say that this takes 1 week to knit, I mean the hour or couple of hours that you have at night, or not at night, in the evening, or whenever, in the morning maybe, whenever you do your knitting. There are no sock patterns in this roundup, and that has nothing to do with socks being bad gifts or anything like that. Socks are great gifts. But I have 2 episodes that I made quite recently about socks, rustic socks to be precise. So no socks. I have picked things that are fairly quick to knit, even though there are some that takes up a bit more time. It's not like knitting a whole sweater though. So I have focused on accessories for this episode. So I am going to talk about hats, hoods, scarves, mittens, cowls or collars, and that's it. Most of these items only use up a rather small amount of yarn. So let's get started with the first category, which is things that take 1 week to finish if you don't have all day, all week to knit, because then it's a lot faster. The first one is the Manhattan hat by Tori Yu. And this is a great hat pattern because it contains so much. It has different brim options, different crown shaping options, and a lot of sizes. So you can make one of these for just about anyone. I really like the crown decreases on this one. It is knit in a 1-1 rib with a single or double folded brim. The hat comes in 6 sizes from baby to adult large. It's knit in a worsted weight yarn. That is why I put it in this category. If you knit the brim double, that will add a few hours to this one. The gauge is 24 stitches, so it's still a rather tight gauge, which is great for a hat because then the wind doesn't go through as easily. This year I have decided to add a children's pattern for each of the categories, except for the scarf category for obvious reasons. And for the headwear, it's the Baby Bear Bonnet by Pernille Larsen. And I have actually knit this one myself for my kid's cousin. And it is the cutest little thing, and it's really quick to knit. The bonnet has little bear ears, which is so cute. It has I-cord edgings and ties. It comes in 7 sizes from 1 month to a year. And for this design you only need a small amount of yarn. I knit the biggest size and I only need a half a skein of each yarn. It is knit in a fingering held with a lace mohair for a gauge of 23 stitches. The next one is the Naomi bonnet by Marias Värden. And this next pattern is a bonnet for adults. Not for everyone. I know that I don't look good in them, but it looks great on some people. And this bonnet is knit in moss stitch and it has a keyhole scarf attached to it. It has an I-cord bind off around the face and a double knitted edge around the bottom. There is only one size available, but it's quite roomy and should fit a few different head sizes. It's knit in 2 strands of fingering weight yarn and 1 strand of lace mohair, and the gauge is 18 stitches in moss stitch. The next pattern is a pair of mittens, the Chantal mittens by Morica Knit. And this pattern includes a fingerless version and a full mitten version, and both are knit in a simple but decorative slip stitch pattern. And I really like the rounded top of the mitten, and the stitch pattern make both designs look elegant and timeless. Both versions come in 4 sizes, S to XL. They're knit in a DK weight yarn and they have a gauge of 30 stitches, so I assume that these mittens are rather wind resistant. The next pattern is Brambly by Annabel Williams, and this is another pair of classic looking mittens with a simple pattern. These have a folded cuff in 2-2 rib that gives extra warmth and a snug fit at the wrist. This stitch pattern is also made up with slipped stitches. The mittens come in 3 sizes and have a finished hand circumference of 17.5 to 21 centimeters, 6 3/4 to 8 1/4 inch. They're knit in a worsted weight yarn and the gauge is 23 stitches. As an extra bonus, this is a free pattern. The next pattern is the child mitten or children's mittens, and this is Lavrans by Havrebarna. And this one is knit in a simple and satisfying texture pattern with extra long ribbing that you can either fold or wear long to keep the wrists warm. The pattern comes in 6 sizes, 0 to 1 month to 8 to 10 years. The mittens are knit in a DK weight yarn and the gauge is 22 stitches. And check out this designer if you're knitting for kids. They have a lot of really cute patterns. The next one is a scarf, and this is the Marielle scarf, also by Marias Värden. And a bandana is usually a quick project, and this is a particularly cute one that can be worn as a headscarf as well. It has an easy eyelet pattern and I-cord ties. The pattern includes 4 different sizes, this bandana, a scarf, and 2 different size shawls, so you can pick how big you want your project to be. They're all really pretty. The bandana and the scarf both fit into this first category of really quick knits. All of the sizes are triangular shaped and knit top down with a center stitch. The bandana is 56 centimeters wide and 24 centimeters high, which is 22 and 9.5 inches. And the scarf measures 100 centimeters in width and 38 centimeters in height, which corresponds to 39 3/4 times 15 inches. It is knit in 1 strand fingering and 1 strand lace for a gauge of 18 stitches. This design uses a very small amount of yarn, only 17 grams of fingering weight and 9 grams of lace for the bandana, and 48 grams of fingering and 22 grams of lace for the scarf. I'm sorry about my voice, I have a cold, and there's really nothing I can do about it. I will just power through. The next pattern is the Pressed Flowers Kerchief by Amy Christophers, and she has a whole range of pressed flowers items. I think there's a sweater, there's a cardigan, there's a shawl, all kinds of beautiful things. But this is the smallest of the pressed flowers designs, and it is also a free pattern, courtesy of Hobie. This tiny scarf also has a triangular shape, but a different construction. It is knit from tip to tip using the mosaic knitting technique for the colorwork flowers. If you have more yarn and time, you can just keep going and make the kerchief into a scarf or a shawl. The finished kerchief, that's a difficult word to say, is 76 centimeters long and 23 centimeters deep, which is 30 times 9 inches. It's knitted a DK weight yarn and the gauge is 24 stitches. The next one is Spes, and this is also a scarf. And the designer is Sara Nordlund. And this is the last pattern in the 1 week category, and it is from her latest book, Summer Knits, which is such a lovely book, and I have knit several things from it already. Not this one though. But this little scarf works just as well when it's cold outside. Just knit it in a wool, alpaca or other toasty yarn. It has an all over feather and fan lace pattern, and it is knit from tip to tip. This type of construction allows you to make your scarf bigger, just keep making more increases before you start decreasing, or smaller. The sample size is 100 centimeters long and 17 centimeters wide, which is 39.5 times 6 3/4 inches. It's knit in a worsted weight yarn and the gauge is 21 stitches. Next category is 2 weeks, and these require a bit more of knitting time, but they are still pretty fast to make. The first one is the Lino Cut by Isolde Teague, and this is a hat that uses stranded colorwork, which is why I have put it in the second category. It has a very appealing flower pattern that makes me think of a picture book illustration. The flowers are asymmetrical and involves long floats that you would have to catch, which I don't have a problem with, but some people think it's tricky. The hat comes in 4 sizes, child to adult large. And this design is part of the Knitworthy 8 collection of patterns that are perfect for gift knitting. This series of collection is a treasure trove of pretty accessory patterns that knits up in a reasonable amount of time. The hat is knit in a DK weight yarn and it has a gauge of 24 stitches in colorwork. The next pattern is Fjodor by Susanne Müller. And the reason I put this rather thick hat in this category is that the brim is knit in half brioche and the lines on the head are crocheted after the knitting is done. So there are some time consuming, I mean, if you're not a crocheter, because then it's probably really quick. This is a hat that looks both timeless and has a contemporary feel to it. It comes in 3 adult sizes and it is knit holding 2 yarns together, a worsted and a lace weight. The gauge for this one is 16 stitches. Next pattern is the Bindle Hat by Wool & Pine. And this is a really fun design that gives ample opportunity to use up your fingering weight scraps. Wool & Pine has a lot of great designs for stash busting, so if you have, like myself, a lot of odds and ends, you could check them out. This hat uses a variation of the Latvian braid technique, so that sounds intriguing. It comes in 4 sizes from toddler to adult large. It's knit holding 4 strands of fingering weight yarn together, so you can use up a lot of stuff that has been lying around. And this should give you a gauge of 16 stitches. The brim is knit in a single color yarn. The next pattern is Cloud Burst by Ariane Gray. And this is a pair of mitts with a pretty lace pattern on the back of the hand. And this is a free pattern and it only has 1 size available, a woman's medium. But I guess you could modify this with thicker yarn, bigger needles, or you could also go the other way, of course. The edges are knit in a twisted rib, and the mitts use a sport weight yarn at a gauge of 30 stitches. Then we have Davor by Isolde Teague, and this pattern is also a pair of fingerless gloves, knit in a sport weight yarn, but these ones incorporate stranded colorwork instead of lace. I love how different these mitts look, depending on which and how many colors you choose. These come in 4 sizes, S to XL, and are, like I mentioned, knit in a sport weight yarn at a gauge of 30 stitches. and these were released as part of the Colorwork Club, but can now be bought as a single pattern. Next one is the very classic gloves by Pearl Soho, and this is exactly what it sounds like, a pair of classic gloves. And this pattern is free as an added bonus. You can choose to knit them with just half fingers or the whole fingers, in which case this pattern might be a bit more time consuming and would perhaps fit better in the next category. Knitting fingers is a bit of a fiddly business, at least I think so. And these comes in 4 sizes, kid to adult large. They're knit in a fingering weight yarn at a gauge of 34 stitches. Next one is Nola by Susanne Müller. She has a few patterns in here because she makes really classic timeless pieces that could fit a broad range of people. So that's why she's represented a lot in here. And this is a pair of simple ribbed mitts that would normally fit in the first category, but these are extra long and knit at a fine gauge, which is why I put them here. They're knit in a 3-2 rib and they go with everything. And these mitts come in 4 sizes, XS to L, and they're knit in a sport weight yarn at a gauge of 34 stitches. And then we have the Rosy Mittens by Lenit. And this is the mitten version of the very popular Rosy sweater, and these are adorable. I would cast them on right now if I didn't have at least 14 ongoing projects on my needle. So yeah, I'm working on finishing those. It's not going great, but I will tell you more about that in another episode. The lovely rose pattern is knit using stranded colorwork. They come in 2 double sizes, SM and LXL, and they're knit in a DK weight yarn or a fingering and a lace held together. The gauge is 24 stitches for these. And next we have a kids pattern, and this is the Vinterflättehals Mini by Strikkesoffe. So this is the children's pattern in the collar cowl category, and this design has big chunky cables on a background of moss stitch. The neck and bottom edge is knit in twisted rib. I like the little rolled edge at the top and the bottom. It comes in 4 double sizes, 1 to 2 to 10 to 13 years. It's knit in 2 strands of light fingering weight yarn for a gauge of 22 stitches. There is also an adult version if you would like to knit one for yourself or some other adult. The next category is 3 weeks. No surprise there. These projects either incorporate techniques that require a bit more time, are a bit bigger, or are knit at a smaller gauge. The first one is Foxtail by Saskia & Co. And I had to do some choosing here because she has quite a few really pretty mitten patterns. And some of them are in the bundle that you can find on Ravelry that I will link down here. And I really have to knit something from this designer. I love her color work. It is both rustic and elegant at the same time, and many of her pieces has a bit of fun to them as well. And this is one of those patterns. These stranded colorwork mittens have cute little fox heads on them. They come in 3 double sizes, XSS to LXL. They are knit in a sport weight yarn at a gauge of 24 stitches. The next one is the My Flow hood by Norgard Knitters. And I love the look of these hood scarf mashups on the models. Unfortunately, they do not look as good on me. However, they could be wonderful gifts for someone else. This is a particularly stunning one, knit in half fisherman's rib, which we all know takes a bit longer to knit. It is knit from tip to tip with the hood as the middle part. It has a double knitted band around the face and on top of the scarf. The neck and bottom of the scarf is finished with an I-cord. It is knit in an Aran weight yarn held with a lace mohair for a gauge of 16 stitches. The next pattern is the Traveler Hood by Andrea Maury. And I do regret not buying this pattern when it was first released and discounted. It seems so warm and cozy, and the details on the hood look really great. There is a whole line of traveler designs with a traveler shawl, shell, which is a short-sleeved cardigan, and a hoodie. It has a very simple knit and purl texture and short rows to shape the shoulders and the hood. It comes in 5 different sizes with a shoulder width of 32 to 42.5 centimeters, which is 12.5 to 16.75 inches. The hood is knit in a sport weight yarn at a gauge of 22 stitches in the pattern. The next one is a scarf, and it is the Distance Scarf by Olga Putano. And I've had my eye on this for a while. I really love the stunning cable pattern on this scarf. If you are pressed for time, there is a DK weight version of this very design. And like many of the popular little scarf patterns, this is knit from tip to tip, which makes it easy to make it bigger or smaller to accommodate the amount of yarn that you have on hand. It comes in 2 sizes and measures 42.5 inches in length and 3.5 inches in width for the smaller one and 4.3 for the bigger one. And I didn't include the centimeters here, but I will put them on the screen. The next one is the Turtle Dove Shawl by Sari Nordlund, and she has made quite a few different little scarf designs, and this is one of the more popular ones. It is made up of a few different cable patterns, and it also incorporates bobbles. This scarf is also knit from tip to tip. It comes in 1 size with a length of 100 centimeters, 40 inches, and a depth of 30 centimeters, 11.75 inches. It is knit holding 1 strand of fingering and 1 strand of lace together for a gauge of 23 stitches. The last one in this category is Jaunty by Andrea Maury, and this is another scarf shawl knit in half fisherman's rib. You can use any yarn weight for this one. The thicker the yarn, the bigger the shawl. You can also adjust the size by making more or fewer increases before you start decreasing, since this shawl also has a sideways construction. A smaller size would put this in the previous category. There are 4 different shawls knit in 4 different yarn weights: fingering, sport, worsted and Aran on the pattern page. The biggest shawl is the worsted version that has a wingspan of 80 inches or 203 centimeters and a depth of 21.5 inches, which is 54.5 centimeters. Gauge varies from 28.5 stitches for the fingering weight version to 18 stitches for the Aran weight one. The next category is projects that take you about 4 weeks to finish. For those of you who have a little bit more time on your hands but still have other things to do. These include a bit more involved color work, double knitting and all over cables. The first one is the Nomad Scarf by Susanne Müller, and this is another hood scarf hybrid. It's knit in half brioche from tip to tip with the hood in between. This is a single size pattern with a shawl length, including the hood, of 125 centimeters. The width, this is such a hard word for me to say. The width of the hood is 23 centimeters and the shawl is 12 centimeters wide. It is knit in a DK weight yarn at a gauge of 18 stitches in half brioche. The next one is Catoween by Saskia & Co. And this is another one of her really beautiful but kind of whimsical patterns. And cowls are great gifts for when you're unsure of the person's size. And this cowl would make a great gift for a cat lover. The cowl is fully reversible and features a black and a white cat in a yin-yang kind of pattern. The circumference of this little cowl is 60 centimeters or 24 inches. And the height is 18.5 centimeters or 5.25 inch. It is a 1 size pattern knit in a sport weight yarn at a gauge of 21 stitches. The next one is the Dagmar Neck by Petite Knit, and this is a bigger cowl or a collar with an all over cable pattern. You start knitting the back and then up over the front. You work an opening for the neck, and stitches for the folded over turtleneck is picked up last. This comes in 1 size with a measurement of 40 centimeters or 15.75 inches from shoulder to the end. The shoulder width I'm sorry, has the same measurement like this measurement from here to here is the same as the one from here to here. Okay. It is knit in a sport weight and a fingering yarn held together for a gauge of 25 stitches in the cable pattern. The next one and the last one is Mabel by Auguste Knit. And this chic and practical scarf is knit completely in double knitting, which is what puts it in this last category. It is knit from tip to tip and has a hole where you put one end through, to avoid a bulky knot. The scarf is one size and it measures 35 times 108.5 centimeters, which is 13.5 times 42.75 inches. It is knit in a fingering weight held with a lace for a gauge of 30 stitches in double knitting. Thank you so much for staying with me this long, and I hope that you find some things that inspire you for your gift knitting, or maybe you just want these things for yourself, which is just as great. Have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next episode. Happy knitting! Bye bye!